Welcome to the podcast. This one is going to be entitled, They're the Freeloaders, Not Us. I got the title from, there was a meme or something on the internet talking about how Trump wants to make it so people making less than 150 grand don't pay any tax, or at least income tax. And somebody commented, well, who's going to pay if the other people are carrying everyone else? And so, 150,000, somebody making 400 grand, that's a lot of money. But it's not Elon Musk, right? It's not like a fat cat. It's just, and it depends if you have two incomes. It's just a couple of accountants or a lawyer and an accountant, or, especially depending on where you live. People don't take that into account. Somebody making 400 grand in Nebraska is doing a lot better than somebody making 400 grand in Manhattan. So some of these things are relative, and some of these things are federal issues, and some of them are state issues. But the idea that the super rich, that we're freeloaders off of the super rich, that's kind of my target today. And yeah, mainly just the super rich. The people on Medicaid who work at Walmart because their wage is too low and Walmart doesn't give them health insurance. Are they freeloaders? The people in unions, are they freeloaders? We're taught that the market makes everything super efficient and nothing is wasted and nobody can scam anybody and nobody gets anything over on anyone, because competition will make it so that if there's any slack in the system, somebody will swoop in and compete and all this. All right. That's the perfect world. I feel like that's the utopia version of capitalism or the free market, right? The communists have their utopia, and we kind of have our utopia, right? Where we act like the market will fix absolutely every problem. Freedom, freedom, freedom. I believe in freedom, but I don't believe in the market fixing all of our problems. It doesn't. We've seen it. We've seen that it doesn't. And with that utopian vision comes the idea that rich people are only rich because they deserve it. That all the rich have earned every dime of their wealth. None of it's through exploitation. None of it's through scamming the system or gaming the system. It's all up and up. It's all above board. It's all completely legitimate. These are all people who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and were completely legitimate in everything that they did. That's how they got their money. Some people, but my guess is the vast majority of the filthy, filthy rich, there was some kind of scam going on at some level. Not that it was illegal necessarily, but everything that's a scam isn't illegal. So I'm talking about the rich who don't work. I'm not talking about the dentist who maybe makes 100 grand more than his labor is really worth because he's in a weird market or whatever. Or the surgeon who makes $500,000. Those guys have enhanced their skills to the point where their labor is worth a lot of money. I'm not going after them. I'm not going after even an like executive or CEO who sells his labor to a company to run that company. They make pretty good money. Now, at some point, yeah, if you're making $50 million in bonuses, that's a scam. I'm sorry. But if you're making $1 million or whatever, and you're doing a job, okay. I'm talking about the fat cats, the filthy rich, the Warren Buffetts, those types of people. So let's think about what Warren Buffett does. Does he build companies? No. Does he create products? No. He just decides which stocks to buy. And that's a job. He's an analyst, you could say. Okay. How much does an analyst get paid? Do they get paid, billions and billions and billions of dollars? No. So why is he worth billions and billions and billions of dollars? Because our system is screwed up. Because our system rewards people who already have money more than it rewards people who do work. That's a huge problem. And I can hear, all the capitalist brains, but that's how it works. That's not how it should work. That's not how a fair economy should work. And we should change things to make it more fair. We've set this thing up. We get to decide the rules. So he owns stocks. And why are those stocks worth money? Well, because they represent businesses that make money. How does a business make money? Well, they have products or services that they sell. Otherwise, it's not a business. And who makes the product or service? Does Warren Buffett make the product or service? No. So why does he then make money off of the business? Because he put money into stocks that represent and that are attached to and benefit from the business. So if Warren Buffett stopped working, would that affect the companies? No. I mean, maybe it would affect their stock price because he wouldn't be buying them, causing demand on the stock price, but that's really it. A company can make business regardless of what its stock price is. I know it's complicated. I know there's certain ways, like GameStop, once their stock price went up artificially because the meme stock thing, that gave him a second wind or whatever. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. If he dumps all of his Coke stocks tomorrow, is Coke going to go out of business? Is Coke even going to be affected? No, that's my point. He doesn't contribute to the business. It will make money because people want the products that it creates. Now, what if the workers in the business stop working? What will happen to the business then? It will seize up. Now, one of the problems is your brain automatically goes to, but workers are interchangeable. Workers don't matter. Workers are just labor. They're just another commodity to buy. Okay, that's not how it should be. That's the problem. And they kind of are, especially when there's menial labor or there's labor that you can be trained really quickly to do. But technically, if they stop working, the business doesn't make any more money. And what if nobody will work for that business again? What if the workers go on strike? Oh, well, then the business collapses. And some of them would collapse overnight. So, and this is Marx's main point. Where does all the value come from then? Maybe not all of it. That's probably too far. But the backbone of the business is the workers. It's not the owner. It's not the stockholders. It's not the CEO. It's all the people being managed. All the people actually doing the tasks that the business does. That's what the business is. We kind of have this upside down. When you go into a Walmart, everything has been put there by workers. Oh, but the capitalist and the CEO manager, he's so smart and he told everyone what to do and they made all the deals. And okay, who moved the stuff there? Who produced the stuff? Who moved the stuff? Who put the stuff on the shelves? Who swept the floors? Who cleans the toilets? Who keeps the lights on? Who installs the light bulbs? People doing work. They're the ones keeping it going. Like on an aircraft carrier. Who keeps the aircraft carrier going? Well, the captain, he blah, blah, blah. Okay, he matters. Without the people doing their jobs, it doesn't matter what he says. He can't do all the jobs. So without the workers, Warren Buffett's stock would be worthless. Without Warren Buffett, Coke would still be fine. So then when the business makes a profit, who benefits from that? Well, the workers do because they get to keep their jobs. Okay. If the company gets a big profit that year, do the workers get an automatic wage? Do they all get bonuses? No. Not in these huge companies. Maybe in like some law firm or something. People at Walmart don't get a bonus. Everybody on Wall Street celebrates when they get a bonus. Because the stock price goes up or the dividends go up or they do a stock buyback, which should be illegal. And the rationale for that is, well, they pay a wage. They get paid a wage because they didn't take the risk to start the business. They get paid the same whether the company does well or not. Well, not really, because they get fired whenever the company wants. It's not like they have a lock on that job. That job could go away tomorrow, technically. So they're taking a risk. It's true, they're not taking the same risk that the guy who started Walmart took when he started Walmart. Okay. But it's not without risk. They can get fired. They can have their wages cut, and there's not a lot they could do about it. They're not unionized. And in a cutthroat world, like a lot of these people want, they could cut their wages as far as they want. Your labor is worth what it's worth. So that's why they get a wage. But is the wage, this is the big question, is the wage commensurate to the amount of wealth that they collectively create through their labor? Almost in every case, no. Because if it was, the company wouldn't make any profits. You have to pay people less. Just like you have to buy something for less than you sell it for, you have to pay people less than their labor is worth by definition. Otherwise, you can't make a profit off of them. So that just depends on how much less do they pay them based on what they make off their products or their services that they provide. And so the argument goes, well, the market sets their wages and you get paid what your labor is worth. Then how does the company have all this extra money to give to stockholders? If we're always told, well, they're running an honest business. These company owners, they're just, doing yeoman's work out there. And then they would pay their workers more if they could. They're all these honest Joes out there. They're all like George Bailey, right? Just scraping by. No, they're not George Bailey. A lot of them are scumbag fat cats who couldn't care less about that's why do you think they sent all the labor to China and Mexico? So they could pay them nothing. That's why. Because they were paying their fellow Americans too much. They couldn't get filthy rich off of paying people real wages, so they went and paid them slave wages over in China and Mexico because they could get away with it because those people are desperate. These people are not George Bailey. I mean, maybe some of them are, but by and large, no. The system isn't set up for that. The system isn't set up for, a mom and pop to, barely make a living, have some nice stuff, but pay their people well. It's not set up for that. It's set up so rich people can scam everybody. That's what it's set up for. So when you're talking about the labor market, the wage market, who decides what their labor is worth? Well, the market decides because they set their labor, the market gives you what your labor is worth, all that. Okay, great. Who is involved in the labor market? Who are the bidders in the labor market? Well, all of the companies hiring people. And what is their common incentive? To pay people less. It's one of the biggest ways you can make money is to lower your labor costs. So they're all incentivized to lower wages. It's not a good market. It's not a good market when you're talking about people, citizens of your country living off of a wage where you're competing to drive it down. Like, think about the when United Healthcare or some big healthcare, Cigna or some big healthcare company, one that's publicly traded. I guess some of them aren't. When they make a huge profit and everybody on Wall Street's happy about it, how much of those profits came from denying people medical coverage? How much of those profits came from, well, we're not going to pay for that. We're not going to pay for this. That's where all the profits came from. How else do you make profits? Running insurance. That's where it all comes from. So, we should change the law so that all health insurance companies are not-for-profit, so that they're like a credit union. So when they make a profit, it goes into lowering prices, or it goes into raising wages, or giving the money back to the members. It's outrageous that people are making a profit and sitting there doing nothing like Warren Buffett, but making a profit off of being cheap on healthcare. That's not a good business, because they're not providing better services. They're not innovating. All that is crap. That's stupid. They're just figuring out how to be cheap and not pay. I mean, think about it. Everybody who's always arguing with the insurance companies, what's the incentive for them to argue and try to deny you coverage? So they can give more money to their shareholders. That's a screwed up system. It shouldn't be that way. Going back to the labor thing, let's say you pay somebody $5 to make a birdhouse, and you turn around and sell that birdhouse for $100. Now, the business owner types will say, but you don't know how much insurance costs, and you don't know how much transportation costs, and you don't know the risks involved, and you don't know blah, 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 blah. They throw up all these smoke screens to make it act like they're not scamming that guy who made the birdhouse. Okay, let's say they didn't make $95 in profits. Let's say they had $50 in expenses, which I seriously doubt they would. Okay, so you're still screwing that guy out of tens of dollars, $30, $35. Why? Because you can. Because they can get away with it. And our system lets them get away with it. So just think about that. So all those excuses for paying people nothing, it's just lies. It's just excuses for paying people nothing and then getting rich off of it. I mean, this analogy is kind of crazy, but a lot of the time it makes sense. How far off are some of these places from slave plantation owners? When you're making, I don't know, $1,000 off of an iPhone because you paid people in a Foxconn plant in China, you paid them nothing to make the electronics inside. How far off is that from a slave plantation owner getting filthy rich? It's not that far off. I know those people aren't slaves, but they're pretty close. And even if they're not slaves, the principle of it is the thing. Let's say you hire your brother and you do this to him. Are you a horrible person? Yes. No, they have all these stupid arguments, just like slave owners had all these stupid arguments. Exploiting somebody is exploiting somebody, whether you're related to them or not, whether you think you're justified in doing it or not. Now, the problem is, how do you define exploitation? I don't know for sure. We could come up with a formula maybe. But if you are making a ton of money off of paying somebody no money or hardly any money, you're a bad person, or you are stuck in a bad system. But if you don't acknowledge that system is screwed up, then there's something wrong with you when you get down to it. You know, the problem with socialism is laziness. The problem with capitalism is greed. And this right here is what we're talking about. So my idea is, if a company makes a profit margin of more than 15%, then all the extra money over and above 15% should go back into the business, go back into higher wages or lower prices. Because one of the excuses they make is, well, it costs money to run these businesses and invest in this and that. Okay, well, invest in this and that. Don't give all that money to your shareholders. Don't, I know, well, they don't usually sell more stocks. Don't buy back stocks. That's kind of like, well, it's not like selling more stocks, but it's making your stockholders richer through from your profits. It should be illegal. And you'll say, but that's not a free market. We don't have a free market now. We don't have real competition now. And we don't want everything to be like the Wild West either. Go read a book about the Gilded Age and the reaction to it, the Progressive Period. Now, I know Woodrow Wilson, okay. I'm not talking every single politician who ever called himself a progressive. The period called the Progressive Period at the beginning of the 20th century, the beginning of the 1900s. We were realizing, a purely free market is a bad place for workers. And we have to fix stuff through minimum wages, through labor laws, through legalizing labor unions, through safety regulations, through prohibiting companies from doing predatory business practices. There's a bunch of different ones. Through prohibiting monopoly, through getting rid of trusts. All of these things. Think about it. Why do they pay you overtime? Because of laws. They pay you overtime because they have to. Why do they pay you time and a half when you work on a weekend? Because they have to. They wouldn't do it if they didn't have to. They don't do anything unless they have to. Now, just, but there's one company. Okay, I'm not talking about one company. I'm talking about by and large. They wouldn't do it unless they had to. In a perfect system, it would be the person who starts a company doesn't sell stocks. When the company gets huge, and I get it. Well, they couldn't get big if they didn't sell stocks and all that. Okay, just quit it with all that, okay? Walmart could have gotten big. Look at Winco. It's not huge. And maybe Walmart couldn't have. No, Walmart was huge before they went public. Usually, companies sell stocks right before they get huge, like Amazon, like Ancestry, right? They sell stocks when they're big enough to get on the stock exchange. They're already big. It's just a way to bring in a ton of capital and to get filthy rich. But think if the owner of the company made $1 million a year, and they're like, once I make $1 million a year, everything else goes back into the business, goes back into higher wages, goes back into lowering prices. That's what it's supposed to be like. But instead, everybody figures out a way to make $1 kajillion. Instead of, well, yeah, that's enough. I'll make the business better. No, I'm going to make $1 kajillion. And then other people wanting to make $1 kajillion get in on it. Hey, you're making a ton of money off of these workers. Can I get in on this? Yeah, it's called stocks. Think how much that would change things. Just that one idea. You put a cap on what the stockholders can get in dividends. You put a cap on certain things. You'd have to, it's complicated. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I'm pretty sure all the ins and outs wouldn't change the basic idea, right? This is the thing they do. They throw up all these smoke screens, CEO wages and bonuses, and you'd have to, whatever. You could figure that out. The basic idea is, like, think about Microsoft. I think they make, I was Googling it once, like a over 50% profit margin, something like that. That's an insane profit margin year after year after year. And where's all that money going? Not back into higher wages, not back into bringing jobs back to America from instead of, paying people nothing overseas. It's not going back into improving the business or lowering prices, for crying out loud. No, it's not going into any of that. It's going into fat cats' pockets. Think about Boeing. One of the biggest reasons they have their big problem is because they said, figure out a way to improve shareholder value. What do the workers care about that? How does that benefit them? It doesn't benefit them. How do the consumers benefit from that? This is another thing. We grant people corporation privileges to benefit us as consumers, to benefit society. We should be getting lower prices and better products. We're not. Where's all that wealth going instead? Into the pockets of the fat cats. They're the freeloaders. They are the freeloaders. You have to get it through your head. They're screwing us. We are poorer than the generations before us because we have let this system develop the way it has. Thank you for listening.